Welcome members and those on YouTube. Today what I'm going to be doing is a little bit of work with Tillandsias, and what I'm going to be doing is these are little seedlings that have developed on the seed head. You sometimes find these as you are in your garden, and so when you do, it's quite easy to wait for them to mature until they're large enough to remove, and then we're going to put them onto some cocoa fibre. You can buy these cocoa fibre rolls and cut it up. Most suppliers like Bunnings or your local nursery should stock a roll of that, or you should be able to find it somewhere. Now what I do first though is I soak the fibre, and this is soaked in a solution that contains a diluted neutral feeding type liquid. So what I'm doing is I'm impregnating the fibres with some food to help feed the little babies, and I do that just by transferring piece by piece, and then later on there's enough water left over to then just give the little seedlings a bit of a drink, and give them a bit of a foliar feed because they're quite dry. So the process is fairly simple, waiting for them to be large enough, as I said, to remove. So these guys here probably matured 6 months or so ago, so they're ready to come off, and it's a matter of just pricking them off or using a pair of forceps or tongs, little tiny thin ones, something like the small ones that you use like tweezers, and pulling off these little babies, and then they have a root attached to them. As you can see with this one, has a little root attached to it, so it's already ready to move on and grow, and so it can start getting foliar fed on a regular basis, probably weekly, a couple of times a week at this time of year and throughout the growing period. So once all the little babies are removed and the seed head has been void of all of the little babies, except there's an itty bitty tiny one up the top there that I'm not too worried about compared to the other size of these guys. They've all been placed, like I said, on the fibre in an upright position, ready for foliar feeding with a spray over the next few months as they mature, and now they've got some space to grow. So at the moment what I'll do is I'll just give them a drink from the other vessel, which has now soaked enough. So this is just giving them a quick drink just to moisturize them and give them a little bit of instant fertilizer, because that's what it is. It's got a little bit of fertilizer in it, liquid fertilizer. Once that's done, I'll just drain off the excess amount of water. Leave a little bit in the bottom just so that the cocoa peat stays moist for humidity purposes, because I'm going to put a lid on top of this container. So it's got a sealed lid on top of it at the moment with some vent holes as well for air circulation. Now, the seed originally, also as I was going around the garden this morning, I found some seed heads. These are from a variety of Tillandsia that has multi-bract floral heads, and they're a really bright red one. And all the seeds were beginning to burst. So I collected up the fresh seed and have popped it into a container, and that's going to be planted as well today. And also found another seed head which is almost ready to burst, and because I'm not working outside as often at the moment, these ones I don't want to lose. So I've brought them inside, so you can see the seed heads themselves are starting to turn a darker shade of green. Okay, see that darker shade of green there? So they're about to burst, and there's a little tiny filament at the top of that one. So there's already been a couple that have burst already. So I'm just going to pop that seed into a pot, just a normal potting pot, a small one, upside down or up the right way, whichever, and just wait for that seed to mature. Meanwhile, working back with the Tillandsias, I'll pop some seed down and get it ready to grow as well. So what I do is I liberally scatter the seed over the fibre itself, just like by holding it and just dragging it along, and then that separates the seeds so it's not all clumped together. onto the cocoa peat fibre there. And then what I do is I refill the containers again with the fertiliser mix to moisten the seed to begin the germination process. Once it's filled over the height of the seed, you can do this with a spray bottle as well. It's just I happen to be doing it this way today. Okay, once it's full and the seed is nice and moist, you can just pour off that excess liquid and end up with seed ready to wait for it to germinate. And that can take anywhere up to 2 weeks, 4 weeks, depending on the temperature. These are going to go onto a seed mat, which is set at a specific temperature to help with plant growth. They'll be covered once again with a lid, which will allow them to dry out in between if needed because of that heating from below. If I want them to stay more moist, then I'll add the tops which seal off the vents. Okay, so that is my very brief tutorial today on transplanting little Tillandsia seedlings and feeding them, and starting the process of growing from seeds, not to mention collecting some seeds yourself with the garden. Okay, hope you guys have a go at trying to grow Tillandsias as well. This is the same for Varieseas. Varieseas are the same type of flower stem, and they produce the same parachute type of seed like these ones. And so the growth is exactly the same and the process is exactly the same. You know, so I've just given them a little bit more of a top up, and I'm just going to drain off just the excess and just leave a little bit behind just for humidity. And that's my tutorial for today. Happy gardening. Bye now.